freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Hey everybody, Cheryl Todd here from Gun Freedom Radio in fabulous Las Vegas. It is January 2025 and it is SHOT Show time. I'm excited to be here with
the other guy, Dan.
And our good friend. This has become a tradition to sit down with Larry Zanoff. Larry has been in this industry for 40 years?
At least.
How is that even possible? You're not even old enough for that.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
And in the entertainment industry, in roles such as subject matter expert and armorer on sets of some of your most favorite movies and TV shows. We're going to unpack some of that. Welcome to Gun Freedom Radio, Larry.
Thank you. It wouldn't be SHOT Show if we didn't do this, right?
It is so true. Now, previous years, we have talked a lot about a show that you were on called Hollywood Weapons. Yep. What's the status of that show?
At the moment, we're not filming. Could be that that's the end of it. Don't know for sure.
I hope not. It's
we're
so
kind of
fun.
on a pause right now. Outdoor channel, just like everybody else in the world, has been impacted by the economy and different things like that. So we're being a little bit more picky about the shows that get made and so on. But all 6 seasons are still available for reruns on several of the streaming platforms. It's still one of the most popular shows on Outdoor Channel. So who knows what the future will bring.
Well, Larry, you've had to hang up too with the strike and stuff too, right?
Yeah, 2024 was a very difficult year for the entertainment industry. There was actor strike, there was a writer's strike, there was a little bit of a moment where there might have been a director's strike, and a lot of production got pushed into 2025. So hopefully this year will be a little bit more lively. Of course, the fires in California have not gotten us off to a good start. But we're hoping that, you know, as the slogan last year was, stay alive till 25, we hope that things will start picking up here in the second quarter of the year. There's all kinds of fantastic projects out there that are kind of percolating, things that I know the viewing public will just love to see, and we just got to get 25 going full bore, and things will start hitting the movie screens.
Boy, we kind of fell out of the habit of going to the movies.
Yep.
Right? We tend to watch movies at home now more often than not, but we are still so hungry for quality movies and TV shows. And so I'm glad to hear that, you know, we're in 25, we're still alive.
Yep.
So
I mean, you know, people forget, but during the COVID pandemic, there literally was a moment there where movie theaters could have folded forever, and you know, going out on a Friday night, having dinner with your girlfriend, and then going and seeing the movie would be a thing of the past.
Yes.
Luckily, that didn't happen. Hollywood is still going strong. They've made some adjustments. You know, movies are not in the movie theaters quite as long as they used to be, so there's a little bit more turnover. But that works out in the end good for everyone, because it means you need more content,
Yes.
which means more filming, which means more work for the crews and everything. So change always happens, but Hollywood is still there.
The public is hungry for movies. I mean, you see them at the theater. There's a lot of people on Friday nights at theaters now, and you're right. The movie doesn't stay. If you don't go watch it soon, it'll be gone.
Yeah,
You know?
and then of course it shows up a little bit later on a streaming platform, and oddly enough, that's, you know, economically that's been good for some of the studios, because if it doesn't become a mega hit in the movie theater, sometimes they get kind of a cult following on the streaming platforms. So there's a new kind of dynamic in the entertainment world, and I think that's something that's just going to continue to grow, especially with CGI and the computer being the main axis of entertainment for people, all the different streaming platforms. There's a lot out there, a lot of content. If you're not finding something that interests you, you're not looking hard enough.
Boy, that's the case. And, something that has always gone together like popcorn and Coke, right, or popcorn and a movie, is Hollywood movies and firearms.
Yeah, I mean, the American film industry is kind of recognized as having started in 1903 with the movie The Great Train Robbery, which was a Western, right? And what was the number one prop in a Western? Firearms. And so there has been from the very, very beginning kind of a love relationship going on there between the media and firearms. And the American film industry especially tends to tell American stories. And whether you like guns or not, America has a very strong firearms tradition. It's part of the cultural fabric of the country. And so if art imitates life and life imitates art, you're always going to see those two things involve firearms with them somehow.
And in order to keep people safe on set with firearms, we need these magical creatures called armorers.
Yeah, the correct term.
A little bit about.
It's kind of going a little bit beyond that now, especially in the wake of the Rust incident. The correct term is motion picture armorer or on-set armorer. And these are a very relatively small but dedicated crew of people worldwide who maintain safety on sets at actually a very, very high professional level. Despite what you might hear in the media because of recent events, the film industry is actually a very, very safe industry. In fact, the last numbers out of OSHA were from 2019, and at that time, industry-wide, so that's everything, bus drivers, airline pilots, everything, in 2019 there were 3.9 fatalities per 100,000 employees.
Wow.
But at the same time in the film industry, there was 0.9 fatalities per 100,000 employees.
Yes.
So the film industry, despite what you read in the media, you don't take your life in your hands just walking on a film set. We are a self-governing industry. We have our own protocols and our own safety guidelines. And when you think about that being kind of self-governed, that kind of safety record actually is a really, really good one.
So Larry, I've been on set with you pre-Rust, and I'll tell you that you can't make a mistake. It is that thorough. He is probably the most amazing safety guy I've ever met.
Oh, I appreciate that.
You couldn't, and we were doing live fire. We used live ammunition, and there was no way a mistake could be made. It was that good.
And I can tell you that one of the shining moments in the darkness that was the Rust incident was when it happened. I started getting these texts and emails and phone messages from people that, quite honestly, I maybe didn't even remember that I had worked with him before, and they were saying like, if I never told you before, I want to thank you now for keeping us safe out on set. I realize now that you weren't being kind of a hard nose about things, but that you were just being caring and professional. And that's, by and large in Hollywood, that's what you're going to find. Whether you're doing stunts or whether you're doing, automobiles or aircraft or watercraft or firearms, a very, very small crew of very dedicated professionals who take great pride in what they do, take great pride in our safety record. Unfortunately, those were not the people that were involved with the Rust incident.
And for people who've been living under a rock and don't automatically know the term Rust or the name Rust and the connotation of it, just give the briefest.
So unfortunately, on October 21st of 2021, there was a Western being filmed in New Mexico. Westerns, of course, as we said, everybody in a Western has a firearm. And somehow a live round made its way onto set. That then got loaded into a firearm that was being used as a prop, and it was assumed that it was a dummy inert cartridge. However, it was a live cartridge, and it led to, when it got discharged, it led to a fatality and an injury. So the second person, the director, he actually, survived the incident and recovered. Unfortunately, Helena Hutchins, who was the DP, the director of photography, she succumbed to her injury and passed, which is a very tragic situation, especially considering that this, as you mentioned, by and large, this is preventable. We know how to do this. We've fired millions, if not billions, of rounds of blanks on movie sets since the inception of the film industry, and it's just a matter of, just like in the Navy, if you're on an aircraft carrier, it's a matter of following procedure and following the guidelines. And we do some very unique things in the film industry, let's face it. The average person doesn't do stunts with cars and flip them over. They don't crash helicopters. They don't do gunfights. But we do that as a regular, everyday kind of thing on a film set. But you have to follow the guidelines. And the one time you don't follow the guidelines, that's when it's going to bite you.
And Larry, you are in charge of the set and handling of the firearms. And you can't assume that somebody that's handling that gun knows what they're doing, because they weren't raised around guns. So the fault lies on, in my opinion, on the armorer, because he is fully in control of that gun.
Right. The armorer, he or she, whoever's on set, who is in legal possession of that firearm, they signed it out from the armory, and they're responsible as a crew member for everything related to that firearm, the maintenance of it, the safety of it, the training of the actors. He or she, as a crew member, has that responsibility, and it's one of the few crew positions that has what we call stop work authority. So if an armorer stands there and says, yeah, no, we can't do this because it's not safe, people are obligated to listen. If a hair and makeup person says that, they might get replaced rather rapidly. And as tragic as the Rust incident is and was, if there is a silver lining out of it, it is that on-set armorers have gotten a lot more attention. There's a higher level of respect within the production community, within the studios and everything. We're vetting armorers much better now. I travel all over the place doing different training seminars for on-set safety and things like that. So, terrible tragedy. Hope and wished it never ever had happened. But if a heightened level of safety awareness is what comes out of it, then I think that's at least one positive thing that we can look at.
And the audience probably doesn't know that even blanks can be extremely dangerous at close range.
Absolutely. I mean, the viewing public, you had a unique experience in that you had the ability to be on set and see how a show is filmed.
Right.
The majority of the viewing public who go to a Friday night movie or a Saturday morning matinee, they might enjoy the 2 hours, but whatever they imagine of how a movie gets made, I guarantee you they're wrong, right? And you can back me up on that now.
Exactly.
So yeah, there's a huge amount of safety. There's a huge amount of prep. Shows like you mentioned, like Hollywood Weapons, actually highlight the behind-the-scenes efforts. That's one of the reasons I enjoyed doing that show so much. And the public, they should educate themselves about this. When you go watch a movie, you shouldn't just watch it and go, "Oh, that was a good movie." You should think about, people who spent a year and a half away from their family, developing the film, writing a screenplay, going all over the world and filming it. I think last year we mentioned again, that's one of the reasons the viewing public should always stay and read the credits. Not because there's going to be an after-credit Marvel scene or something like that, even though they're fun.
Those are fun.
But, you start recognizing some names of people after a while, because at the level that we do things in Hollywood, when you look at like Marvel movies or Extraction movies or things like that, there's not a lot of crews out there that can pull that off in a safe and believable way. And so, they deserve the credit. The public should actually, and if you read the credit roll at the end of the movie, you might actually start realizing that, wow, that person was involved in all 6 of my favorite films. Well, there's a reason for that.
Start seeing the same name.
Exactly.
When we watched your show, Cheryl would get impatient with me because I'd pause it and say, Larry had to do 25 minutes to shoot that just to, and so because I could see the background, I imagined the background, and you don't even think about stuff like that.
It's amazing. People don't realize it, but on a normal average film, a 2-hour film, you normally have 10 to 12 weeks of prep, 16 to 18 weeks of filming, then maybe another 16 weeks of wrap and post-production, and none of that starts until the script is already written, the cast has already been selected and everything. So the amount of effort that goes into even an average film is just, it's incomprehensible. If you're not part of the industry, you really don't have a clue, as to what goes into making those things.
So you need to do a film on that.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of my favorite films was a vampire movie called In the Shadow of the Vampire, and it was a movie about making a vampire movie. Very, very fun movie with John Malkovich and William Dafoe. If you've never seen it, you should go out and see it, In the Shadow of the Vampire.
Well, and there was a movie that came out last year. I think it was called The Stuntman. Am I remembering?
Fall Guy.
The Fall Guy.
Yeah.
Were you involved in that?
We didn't do any firearms on that film, but we did provide props, because ISS, Independent Studio Services, is not just a weapons department. We are a full-service prop house. I was kind of disappointed that it wasn't more based on the original television series, The Fall Guy, with Lee Majors. That was one of my.
At the end,
yeah, they gave a little bit of a nod to it, but I think the storyline was a little bit different. But it was a cool performance. There was a lot of good stunts that were in it and everything. You did get to see a little bit more of it, so it was entertaining. It was definitely worth seeing.
And kind of gave you a little bit of the peek behind the curtain.
Yes,
I think
for sure,
for how stunts are done and that sort of thing. That's what made me think of it. So we've touched on this a little bit, but let's drill in a little bit more. That you are now the AI firearms rep.
The IA.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
IA.
So the international. I had been the firearms rep for Local 44, which was the local prop union in California. For several years, even prior to the whole Rust incident. The IA has now appointed myself and one other person in Texas as 2 firearms reps. So now, if you're a production out in the middle of nowhere and some kind of safety concern pops up or a question comes up as to what is the best way of doing something, there's a phone number to call, and we hope that will continue to expand safety in the industry, push the bar a little bit higher on every project, and hopefully lead to some very positive things.
Well, I can't imagine anybody better for that job.
Thank you.
You are just such you cross the T's, you cross them again, maybe cross them one more time. You dot those I's, you dot them again, and that's exactly what we need. My
co-host on Hollywood Weapons, Terry Shepard, who's a great guy, and we really work well together. And after the Rust incident, we were doing an interview at a film festival, actually, and they kind of asked about the whole Rust incident because it was obviously in the headlines. And after talking about the chemistry between us and how, we're truly friends and all that, Terry actually pointed out, he says, he goes, but you know what? Once the firearms come out onto set, Larry's not my friend anymore. He gets really focused, and it's very black and white. And as you expressed, when you were out on set with us, and it's just the way it's got to be. Pilots have a checklist. Every time before they take off, they go down a checklist. They could do it a million times and they don't rely on their memory. They always go to the checklist. There's a reason for that. And the same kind of procedures is what we implement, at the very highest levels in the film industry.
That's fantastic. You are also a subject matter expert on an outdoor channel show called Gun Stories, and that has been going on. I mean, how many seasons is that
I think it's either 15 or 16 seasons so far. Gun Stories with Joe Montana as the host.
That's what we shot. That's what we shot.
That was where you were out with us. It's a fantastic show. It kind of has the perfect mix of documentary and entertainment. And so even if you're not a firearms enthusiast, I think you'd find it as a very interesting show. It uses a lot of archival footage. So if you're talking about some incident in World War I, it might dissect that. And then, of course, having Joe on set, who's just this blooming personality, he's able to communicate things in a very, very easy to understand way. Dan Ram does the writing on a lot of that. He does excellent work. And so it's a great show. It's been on forever. All the seasons are available in reruns as well. And so, watch the show. You might learn something.
What was the firearm that you took from our collection? And were you on film?
I was on film, but it was MG15, 34, and a 42.
42, yeah.
Okay.
Full auto machine guns.
And did you appear on camera?
No, I didn't appear on camera. No, they're not going to put me on camera. Come on, Cheryl.
Well, it was a lot of fun for us.
It was so much fun, and I learned so much just from watching Larry. And like I said, I have never seen somebody that's trained that handles things the way that you do, and it's awesome.
So what is in the works? What's in the pipeline?
Oh, my goodness.
Can you share any secrets with us?
There's all kinds of things in the works. Starting in February, there's kind of a new crop of some of the Marvel movies that are coming out. Captain America 4. There's one that's called The Thunderbolts, and there'll be some more television streaming shows coming out of Marvel. Bigger franchises like Extraction that were on Netflix and things like that. They're working on the next iterations. There's a really cool film we're working on. I'm going to be going to Hungary next month to kind of stop in and check on the film. And can't tell you what it's called, can't tell you what it's about, but I guarantee you'll like it when it comes out. It's going to be a big kind of action shoot 'em up. So like we said, Hollywood is not dead. Maybe the form of delivery has changed, whether it's movie theater, television, or streaming. But it's there. People are hungry for entertainment. We're hopeful, of course, that over the next several years the economy will improve. We have been in a little bit of a slump since COVID. There's whole segments of life that have never really bounced back yet from COVID. As far away as we are, it's still kind of with us. And so let's get out of that funk. Let's get the economy going. That's good for everybody's business, especially good for the film industry. You go out on a Friday night, you enjoy yourself with your wife or your kids or your girlfriend or significant other, and that's the American dream. That's what we all want to get back to.
And popcorn never tastes as good as it does at the movie.
It never does. I don't know what it is that they pour over that. Sometimes I'm a little bit afraid to ask.
Don't ask, just enjoy it.
It definitely, feels good. And where else can you go and still get some Good and Plenty and Good and Fruity and all that kind of stuff? And there is something, and honestly, I've been working in the film industry for about 25 years now. And of course, I've gone to movies my entire life as a member of the audience as well. But there's something magical about being in the dark with a whole group of people. They're all strangers. You don't necessarily know any of them, but it becomes kind of like this group dynamic when you watch things up on the screen. Something that, as enjoyable as your big screen can be, sitting in your bathrobe at home and watching something, there's still something lacking in that. When you're in the movie theater, it's the surround sound and the reactions of other people and things like that. It's just, it's the whole scale of the thing makes it very unique.
Larry, and they can't pause it either.
They can't pause it either. That's true. You're in a way, you lose.
Why are you looking
that.
at me when you say that?
you lose that when you're sitting at home. And one of the things that I think is the side effect of that is kind of like, when you look at art and it's like a forced perspective kind of art piece, when the director, when the storyteller is telling you the story of the movie, they're forcing you into that kind of perspective when you're trapped in the dark, and all that. When you have that freedom of, I'll just hit pause and I'll come back to it later, you lose something in the narrative,
Definitely. You're in the movie when you're at the theater.
Yeah.
I agree.
One last question. I wasn't even planning to ask you this, but when I picture you sitting at home or in the theater with the knowledge that you have, I mean, how is that for you? Because they use the wrong sounds for guns. People hold the firearms the wrong way.
So this is the reason that my wife refuses to go to the movies with me, right? But at the same time, I do have a problem watching a movie that I worked on. If I was out on set, you're very close to it. It becomes very personal. You're sitting there and you might see kind of imperfections. Nobody else in the movie theater sees it, but you see it, or you're sitting there going like, oh God, I remember that night. It was 18 hours in the rain, and it brings back, PTSD and stuff like that. But when I do go to a movie, there is a little bit of an aspect of I'm watching the story, but I will sit there sometimes, especially if it's firearms related, and I'll go, I wonder how they filmed that. So it kind of makes you think, being a professional, you think about these things and you wonder like, they must have filmed it this way. And then you debate, well, would I have filmed it that way? Or was there some other way to do it? And so, it's kind of like a writer reading somebody else's book. And you pick up stuff, and after all, there's nobody that knows everything, and you always want to add something new to your bag of tricks and everything, and so that's kind of how I go into it, Sometimes it's even more entertaining to watch the audience watch the movie than to watch the movie yourself.
Sure.
Because you get a feel for like, okay, what brought about that reaction, and you might pull that trick out of your bag of tricks next time you're out on set.
So fun. What a great conversation. We always enjoy this, Larry.
I wouldn't have a SHOT Show without it, right?
I love it. So tell folks how they can follow the work that you do, or somebody out there like they want to tap into the IA firearms rep side of your world, or
so the number
like
one way to do it, of course, is go see movies, and then stay and read the credit roll, get familiar with the names of people that you enjoy the projects that they've worked on. There are great websites out there like IMDb, and there's even one called IMFDB, which chronicles all the firearms in different films. You can learn a lot from that. You also see some behind-the-scenes kind of specials that they do there. If you're interested in getting into the film industry, the best way to do it is to join an IA local, become a union member in the film industry and become a film professional. And again, the community is so small that once you get into it, whether you're doing stage plays or low budget television, you're going to wind up kind of bouncing around and coming up against these different people. I know that was my experience when I first got into the film industry. There were some people that I knew their names, and then now it's like, oh my God, I actually got to work with that person, And it's a wonderful industry. It's a wonderful feeling. It brings, laughter and emotion to people all over the world. There's either people, like I said, who enjoy going out because it's a fun thing, or there's people that are maybe going through a rough patch and they go to the movies to forget about, what's going on in their life, and you can say that you had just a little part in all of that and everything. So I encourage people to go to film school if it's a career that you want to try to pursue. Don't let anyone out there tell you not to do it, and give it your best shot, and someday you'll make it.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much for all that you
Of
do.
course.
We appreciate
My pleasure.
you. All right, stick around. There is lots more coming up from 2025 SHOT Show in fabulous Las Vegas.